Hello, 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 and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jen, and this is basically, this is Zen Jen's vlog is what I'm calling it, and this is basically my video blog where I'm going to share various breakthroughs and epiphanies that I come to based on life experiences and looking back over some of my situations that I've been through and survived and kind of like learned from and stuff, and some of them are kind of crazy. Some of them, are just like, what? I don't believe in coincidences. I believe coincidental things happen, but they are not accidental. I think that there is divine timing in everything. And I think that some of my stories might help you to understand some of the things that I understand based on my experiences. I hope anyway, because it's my life is kind of magical and I like it that way. And I kind of want more people to have a magical life, um, so this video is about trusting in the process, right? Trusting the journey and strengthening your faith. Now, I don't know about you, but in order to build trust, I have to get to know and understand something extremely well. So in order for me to trust the process that life lays before me, I had to go back and analyze and learn and realize that everything that I am attracting to me serves a purpose, right? Everything that I have attracted to myself and everything that I will attract to myself is for the purpose of my growth and evolution as a human being and my expansion as an eternal soul, right? That's a big chunk of understanding to come to, and it took me about 10 years. So don't try to wrap your head around it all at once, yeah? Trusting the process and law of attraction. Now, here's one aspect of law of attraction that people do not want to talk about because it doesn't look pretty and shiny, okay? Whenever you send out this desire and make a decision to go after this particular desire and you feel it and you're inspired and you're just, your life is just beautiful and you're in love with the process, right? Whenever that happens, law of attraction begins to work for you immediately, okay? And sometimes in order to make room for what's coming, your life has to be emptied out of what is, right? Think about that for a minute, because I don't know of anybody who does this consciously, right? And because we always attract by default, it just looks like a big giant mess of problems to most of us until we realize that that's not at all what it is, that it's really just life leading us to clear out, Hang on one sec. I'm going to take some coffee. Nummy, nummy, nummy. So, this process can look like a mess. It can look like a big mess, but I'm going to illustrate my point with a real life set of circumstances and series of events that happened to me. For me. So at the time I was with my ex-husband. We were living in Tennessee. Those of you who don't know, Fort Campbell is actually in Kentucky, but half of it is in Tennessee. So it's like two sides, and we lived in Tennessee, off post. We lived in a crappy trailer park, lived right down the road from his mom temporarily until she moved. And his sister and her fiance or husband, I can't remember if they were married yet or not, they were living fairly close also. So I was like, oh, cool, I'll have family here whenever he gets deployed again, right? That was the whole plan. So we ended up staying there for a little while, and it was a crappy trailer park, and it was not supposed to be an option for military and their like families, but we ended up there anyway because my ex-husband was making the decisions and he was more concerned about other things, about finances, than he was about the safety and well-being of his family. So unfortunately that came back and bit him in the ass too because, well, he bounced a check on me, you know. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent again. So the sequence of events was very weird. The whole entire winter was kind of crappy. The heater kept breaking. There was no insulation to speak of. Stray cats kept coming into our trailer from underneath it through the heater vents. The heater wasn't working, so they were easily able to climb through there without hurting themselves. And, I'm not even sure if the heater would have worked at all anyway, because how are the cats even getting up there? You know what I mean? So they would climb in and they would jump on top of the fridge and eat our bread right out of the plastic. Those poor cats were starving, so it's like, well, it's not their fault. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's feeding them cat food or anything. I was tempted to get cat food, and my ex-husband was like, no, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to attract them more. I'm like, dude, they're eating our food. What the hell? You know what I mean? We might as well give them some of their own. Anyway, it was crazy. So between the heaters breaking and the stray cats coming in, at one point there was sewage coming up from the bathtub drain. Totally disgusting. We had to get space heaters, and those ended up being just as expensive to run as the big giant heater, and nothing was heating. Like, I had to take one of these space heaters, put it like next to the coffee table, put my feet up on the coffee table, drape a blanket over the whole thing, and hold the baby and sit there in order to not freeze to death. So obnoxious and very, very uncomfortable, and very much not any kind of type of living that I would want to do again ever. Ugh. So all these things, right? All these stresses. And on top of that, my ex-husband was very verbally and emotionally abusive. He never actually hit me, but he was still a total douche. So, ladies, if you're with a guy and he's all proud of the fact that he never hits a woman, chances are he might actually be a narcissist and he might actually be verbally abusive. So please be careful. Pay attention to the warning signs, okay? You can check out soulvomit.com and look at the blog. And that actually has the cycle of abuse. And yeah, if you're in a domestic violence relationship and you can get out safely, do so as quickly as possible. This is not a fucking cool place to be. Okay. That being said, all these things, right? So next thing I know, sister-in-law's getting deployed. Her fiance's getting deployed. My ex-husband's getting deployed. And his mom moved back home. So I'm by myself, 18 years old, brand new baby, no clue how to take care of myself, and abandoned by everybody who was supposed to have my back, who promised me that they would have my back. And everybody just, the deployments are beyond my control. His mom had some kind of health issues that she needed to take care of, so that was beyond my control, and I was just left by myself. Thanks. With no permission to go back to Washington because my ex-husband did not want to let me go back to my parents, right? Now, the thing is that there were a lot of crazy circumstances. So that's kind of what I'm going to get into now. So it started small, right? It started with rumors or hearsay or whatever about somebody getting stabbed down the road, right? And then one night, it was really late at night, and this all happened within a short period of time, mind you, okay? One night, it was really late at night, and somebody actually grabbed my doorknob and was pulling on the door and yanking on it, trying to force it open, right? So I was freaked out. I was on the phone with my mom at that point, and the person kept yelling about wanting cigarette or something, and I was just quiet because I was like, dude, I'm not going to let on that there's anybody here. So the person eventually went away. I have no idea who it was. I have no idea what the hell, you know what I mean? It was just one of those weird things. So then, my mom, who was on the phone with me when this person was like trying to get into the door, she ended up buying me a plane ticket to go back to Washington for some point after Easter, right? So I had a little bit of time to figure things out and to get everything straight and blah, blah, blah. Well, when my ex-husband first deployed, he wrote me a check in order to get me through the month and pay all the bills and blah, 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 right? So when he wrote this check, he told me, hey, you need to go and cash this almost immediately so that it doesn't bounce, right? Because otherwise the money's not going to be there. So I looked at the check and I told him, well, my bank is going to want to hold this for 5 days. It's an out-of-state check. They're not going to take this, you know? So I did end up going to try and cash the check. They gave me $100 of it, and they had to hold it for 5 days, 5 business days, just like I said. And of course, by that time, the money was no longer in his account. So not only was I out all the money that I needed to pay the bills, now I was also in the negative by 100 and eating some serious fucking fees. So I needed to find some solutions very, very quickly. Hang on one sec. So he bounced that check on me, and I basically lost all the money that I needed to pay the bills. So there went rent, there went the internet, there went pretty much everything, close to everything, right? So then I was like, okay, I have to figure something out. My mom and I were trying to come up with a plan of some sort. And sometime shortly thereafter, I was in bed one night, right, sleeping, and it was like midnight or so, maybe a little bit after, between midnight and 1 o'clock, something like that. And my neighbor came pounding on the door, knocking on the door. She was freaking out. She was saying that her and her husband got in a fight and that she needed somebody to talk to and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, all right, fine. You know, now mind you, this was after my ex-husband told me not to judge people, living in a trailer park, and that I had a silver spoon in my mouth, and et cetera, which isn't true at all, okay? My parents, my mom is just good with money. That's all it is. They were never wealthy. You know what I mean? I was never spoiled. Just because I never lived in a trailer park doesn't make me have a silver spoon in my mouth or whatever. Anyway, so it was like a ridiculous, you know, it was just a ridiculous experience with this person. So I did my best. I did not judge them based on 5 kids running around in one little trailer, or her sister living there, or all of them missing half their teeth rotted out of their face, or both women being extremely obese, or them, you know, whatever. So, or her husband just having gotten out of jail. Yeah, I didn't judge them on any of that. And here's what happened. So she's knocking on the door. She's telling me that her husband and her got in a fight and she needs someone to talk to. So I was like, okay, let me go to the bathroom real quick. I just woke up. Go ahead and have a seat in the living room. I'll make you some tea, blah, blah, blah. I go to the bathroom. I come out. she's nowhere to be found. So I was like, okay, well, that was a waste of my fucking time. Thanks. I locked the door. I checked on the baby. I went back to bed, right? Dead tired. The next morning, I realized that the PlayStation was missing, the shotgun was missing, which was also loaded and next to my bed, by the way. My husband's idea, not mine. A bunch of the PlayStation games were missing and several other electronic stuff. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those things where I was like, wow, okay, well, great. This is what I get for listening to everybody else's fucking advice, you know? Don't listen to other people. If your gut instinct tells you something, listen to your gut instinct, yeah? So I called the police. I filed a report. They had already left. They were like, they had either left already or they were leaving or in the process of or whatever. And I just, yeah, it was very disappointing. That was a disappointment in humanity, honestly. That was like, wow. Yeah, this is why the stereotypes exist, you know? This is why people jump to conclusions and stuff, because of motherfuckers who play into it and who make those stereotypes true. So if you don't want the fucking stereotypes, stop acting like the stereotypes, yeah? So neighbors robbed me. They took about $1,500 worth of shit. And I was like, great, one more problem to add to the mountain, right? And at this point, I was kind of overwhelmed. I was kind of frustrated. I was kind of like, dude. So I decided I'm going to go for a little drive. I'm going to put a little gas in the car. I'm going to drive around for a few minutes and calm down and listen to some music. And then I'm going to go to the library and gather my thoughts and email my husband, right? So I headed out. I think I got gas or something, and I was headed to the library. Excuse me. So I'm trying not to yawn on camera too much. It always ends up happening. I'm not sure why. Anyway, so I was headed to the library, and I was listening to music, and the baby was in the back, and then I saw this MP car just walking up on me, like, you know, code 3 or whatever they call it, where it's lights and sirens. And so I hurriedly pulled over and accidentally hit a pothole in the cement and got a flat tire. At which point I was basically throwing my hands up in the air like, you know what? This is just stupid. This is so stupid. How stupid and ridiculous is my life going to get before it just stops and I get a fucking break, you know? So now I was stranded. This was before I had a cell phone. I didn't have any money, and I had nobody that I could even call because everybody was gone, you know? So I was kind of standing there, and I started digging through the trunk, and I started, you know, trying to get the tire out from underneath the trunk-sized fucking subwoofer my ex-husband insisted on putting in there, even though we were about to have a fucking baby. And, of course, couldn't get the spare out at all. I would have had to break the speaker or unplug everything, and I had no idea what I was doing. Luckily enough, within a few minutes, a van pulled up, government plates, right? I was on Fort Campbell, so it was, you know, probably government employees. Guy jumps out and says, hey, do you need me to call a tow truck for you or anything? And I was like, oh, God, no. No. Don't call a tow truck for me because I don't have any money. How am I going to pay for it? You know? And so he was like, well, I think, you know, he kind of looked and saw that I had a baby and was like seeing how, you know, kind of frazzled I was, you know, at this point. I was like, I don't even know what to do. I don't know what to do. And there's no help in sight. Everything looks hopeless, you know? So this total stranger, you know, he goes, well, why don't you come with me back to Rear D, back to the rear detachment building, and we'll see if First Sergeant has any ideas and can help you at all. And I had no idea who this was, but I was like, okay, that sounds good. Let's do that. So me and my baby, we went in the van with these guys, and we went back to the building, and everything was fine. And they had me sit down in this office, and I waited for the sergeant, and he showed up a few minutes later, and I was just kind of hanging out, with the baby and talking with her. She was like 5 months old, 4 months old, something like that. So he sits down and he's like, so I hear that you've had a run of bad luck or need some help with something. What do you want to tell me about? Just tell me what's going on, right? So I kind of went into my spiel. I went into everything that had gone wrong. I went into how like my ex-husband bounced a check on me, and I was very focused on how everything went wrong, but it was to the point of ridiculousness where I couldn't really get upset over it anymore. It was just so much that I was like, well, what am I going to do about it? You know what I mean? And life has done that to me several times. So it's like, okay, let go of control, man. You can't control it at all. So the first thing he said to me was, wow, I can't believe how calm you are. How old are you? And I told him I was 18. And he's just like, oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever seen an 18-year-old handle anything this well. That's crazy. So that was a good compliment. That was a big one. That was like, thank goodness. Okay. And he's like, all right, well, let's see if we can take care of your flat tire first. Any ideas? So I told him, well, we could probably call my parents and have them pay with a credit card over the phone, but I still need to get someplace to get the tire fixed. So that was the first order of business, was making sure that I had my tire fixed. Long story short, okay, there is a reason why I call this man to this day my guardian angel. And he knows who he is. Nobody else needs to know who he is. But he is my guardian angel, right? He was like very, very much sent by the divine to help me, okay? Because that was like the turning point, the pivotal, like, hey, this is awesome. So let's break this down for a minute and look at what actually happened. That was all a lead up to this, by the way. I was still in trouble, and all those problems got solved, and it was totally fine. But the ones that the point that I want to focus on, okay? First, I made the decision that I wanted to get out of there and go back to Washington, because being there by myself, so young, with no resources, no job, no family, nobody to like mentor me or guide me or help me or teach me or anything, I wanted to go back home to my parents, right? Because they would help me and they would guide me and they would, like help me figure out what to do next, right? Especially in crazy situations like that. Yeah? At least they used to. This situation that I'm currently in is very similar, but also different. So that was the decision, right? The decision was, I want to get out of here. So when he bounced that check, he took away my ability to pay for the internet bill, which meant that when the neighbors robbed me, I couldn't email my ex-husband from the house, right? So I had to drive to the library in order to even let him know what happened. Well, on my way to the library, I got a flat tire. That flat tire in turn led me to meeting this particular person who ended up helping me move the furniture and stuff into the storage unit. My neighbors robbing me actually helped me to be able to get that storage unit without a down payment, because the lady that was working there had happened to read a newspaper article about that exact incident. And I'm kind of thinking that that newspaper article was because of a conversation, a very in-depth conversation I had with one of the army wives that I happened to befriend, sort of. We hung out, I think, one night or whatever, but I think she may have mentioned it in passing, or she knew somebody who was writing an article or something. I don't know. I don't know how it happened, but the point is somehow that story made its way into the newspaper without me. And this lady read about it and was basically making, conversation like, oh, I can't believe what's coming to the world. This poor girl got robbed by her neighbors. And I was like, you're looking at her. Tell me how all of these coinciding things could possibly be accidental. I don't think they can. I sent out a request. My request was I need to make it back to Washington. In very roundabout, weird, crazy, step-by-step, one thing at a time kind of ways, I was led to everything that I needed. I was guided, right? Somebody had my back. So that being said, the next time you are going through what seems like an endless mess of problems, I encourage you to look back at a time in your life previously where it seemed similar, where you were also going through a mess of problems, and look at the underlying connections. Like once you're here in the present and you look at the past, they always say hindsight is 20/20. Well, you better fucking use that 20/20 hindsight, because otherwise you're going to miss all these connections. Come on, man. I guarantee you that at some point in your life, you have experienced something very similar to this. And if you pay attention, if you are self-aware, if you are aware of everything that's going on around you, if you are curious enough to look at some of the details that maybe don't seem important, but strike you as weird. Pay attention when things strike you as weird. You'd be amazed what might come out. You know what I mean? So I wanted to share this story because right now I'm kind of facing a mess of problems, a mountain of problems again. And fortunately, I have the life experience and the wherewithal to realize that everything is happening for a reason. It all serves a purpose. And if the only purpose is for me to make this video and have an impact on somebody else's life and help them to realize, hey, this is what's happening. This is really what's going on. Let's look deeper at the layers of connection that are apparent once you start paying attention. That's when life becomes magical. That's when you start to be able to observe some of the things unfolding in your life that people may say are bad, right? For example, me getting kicked out, right, would be considered bad by most. I've been kicked out several times. I don't even know why I take it seriously anymore, because usually it's just a power play. It's a control tactic that my parents have used for years and years and years. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go away because I don't want to deal with all that crazy manipulative crap. Anyway, if the purpose is that I help one or two people navigate their life circumstances that are overwhelming and seem crazy, and you can just take a step back and look at it and see if there are underlying connections, right? It's hard to do while you're in it. That's what I'm learning how to do while I'm in it. And it is difficult to get there. It is challenging. However, if you're able to look at it that way, if you're able to look at some crazy series of circumstances in your past that way, you'll be able to see it in the present more easily. And, you know, those connections, they're there whether you want to look at them or not. Just like the two sides of the coin, you know? They're there whether you want to look at them or not. So, if you would like to see the magic, the divine guidance and intervention that you get in your life, then you have to look at it. You have to pay attention to it. You have to be able to take a neutral stance looking at good, quote unquote, and bad things in your life, right? You can't judge them as good or bad if you're going to use them, if you're going to benefit from them. It's way easier said than done, of course, but you understand where I'm coming from, hopefully now. I hope this story helps you. I really do. And I hope that my crazy ass life experiences give you kind of a new perspective. I try to see things from a positive light more often than I do from a negative light, because I kind of like the sunshine, you know. I kind of like it here in the sun. It's very beautiful. And I like to appreciate the contrast of the shadows, because without one, you can't have the other, you know? So there it is. There's my law of attraction story for the day, and I hope you guys have a fantastic week. Don't forget to share if you think that this will help other people. Like, subscribe, do your thing, and I will see you guys next time, hopefully with another cool story.